How you doing, James? Just joking.
We're here at the Columbus Zoo with Jack Hanna. Jack Hanna, this is a facility that you've certainly helped build. Tell us a little bit about this place, the history of this place, and why you've done it.
Well, the history of the Columbus Zoo is not simple. It's obviously a long history, 75-year history. But in 1978, the federal government was getting ready to close the zoo. They had 60 days. And I just was looking for I was a zoo director of a small zoo in Florida, but my daughter had cancer, had leukemia, Julie. And so they chose 4 or 5 hospitals in this country that she could go to after she left St. Jude's. And it just so happens that Children's Hospital in Columbus was one of them. And it just so happens they were looking for a zoo director. That's amazing. And my friend in New Jersey read it in the New York Times that the Columbus was looking for a zoo director. So you talk about fate. And I ended up here in 1978. It wasn't Jack Hanna that saved the zoo. It was me putting a bunch of people together to saying, hey, look, you know, you have a zoological park here on a beautiful area, on a body of water in a beautiful part of Columbus. And if you don't do something in 60 days, it's going to go down the tubes. And so the city of Columbus, by the way, the zoo is under the Sewers and Drains Department. So that tells you one thing, doesn't it? And back then, a lot of zoos were having problems in this country. And so Mel Dodge, Director of Parks and Recreation, gave the zoo $1 million. And that was really the first major turnaround. At that point, then what I did was I just go out and talk to everybody. I'd talk to 3 people or 3,000 people about the zoo. I'd take little videos, I'd take little slides, I'd take anything I could. And I'd go out and do all that. I'd do a little cable TV shows that might have 2 viewers or 2,000 viewers. Didn't make any difference to me. And I'd just talk about the zoo, how great it was. Even though it might not have been as great as I said it was, I knew it could be that great. And so I kept working and working and working. And then in 1985, we built the zoo up real well. Our attendance had grown from 280,000 to almost 600,000 in that 4 years. We took our gorilla collection, which I think you saw today, our famous gorilla collection, that had been in those old cages you saw over there. That's all they had. And I built an outdoor gorilla habitat, which, by the way, is not here anymore. I put the gorillas outside. 200,000 people came that summer to see that, to see the gorillas. Had never touched grass in 30 years. And they all came up here to look at that. And then at that point, that was a turnaround. Then in 1985, I went to the voters with a property tax. You know what that is, a property tax, for about $10 a homeowner. And we went to the levee, and I held a little baby gorilla and did this ad. And the little gorilla at the end of the 30-second spot saying, vote for issue 2, let's say is what it was. And at the end of the ad, the gorilla turned around and kissed me, the baby gorilla. That sold it, passed by 78%, a $10 million property tax levy. That was 85. 1990, we passed one for another 5 years for $28 million. In 1995, we passed one for $80 million. In the year 2005, it was 2005, 2 years ago, we passed the largest property tax for a zoo in the history of America, $198 million for the zoo, by 70%. Now you don't, what it to me is amazing. It shows you what the people of Central Ohio love their zoo. And yes, I'm sorry that a lot of school levies failed. I wasn't proud of it. Some people say you're proud. I'm not proud of that at all. But what we do have here at least is an educational institution up here at the zoo, not just a place for animals. Some people think that the zoo is a place for just animals. That's wrong. This zoo is just more than education than animals. Unless you teach people about our animal world, you don't need to have the animals. See, people have it a little bit backwards. They think that zoological parks are only for us to breed these animals and put them back out in the wild. That's garbage, because there's very little wild left. What it's here for is to breed these animals so we can have breeding loans to other zoos throughout the world, and then maybe 25 years from now, when we get some of these lands under control in some of the third world countries and even our own country, then we can maybe set some back out in the wild. But the whole key to it is education and research is what we're doing here. I'm not talking about research of, like research. I'm talking about research of learning about the animals themselves. And that's the number one purpose of a zoo. And right now, the voters see that. And the other main reason is to have fun. Some zoos think it's just, they're there just and the animals are hands off. That's not how we operate in Columbus. And I think the voters have spoken to that. This zoo is very much a people's zoo, where you come here with your family, you have a great time, and when you leave here, you say, man, I didn't know the giraffe had the same number of vertebrae we did. I didn't know that the elephant had 30,000 muscles in his trunk. And so you see, you've been educated when you leave the zoo, and that's the key to it.
It's not just a Columbus asset, it's not just a national asset, it's a global asset, and I'm really proud to meet you and be here to see what you've done here. Let's talk a little bit about the fact that there's very little wild left. There's a lot of, you're a renowned conservationist, there's a lot of worldwide exotic species that are involved with your work. There's also a lot of local conservation. Mm-hmm. And tonight we're going to be speaking to families and kids that live in upstate New York, in North America. What are some local conservation issues that people should be thinking about? It's not just save the rainforest, not just save the whales out there. It is that, certainly. But what are local issues? And how
Well,
does that role play?
You have a good point. If you can't take care of things locally, you can't take care of things nationally or internationally. So you really, good point. You have to start locally, which we did with the Columbus Zoo. And I'll relate back to what you're saying. We started locally, and now, believe it or not, 30 years I've been here, we support 42 projects around the world right now. So we started locally. Remember I told you the little old zoo? Now we support 42 projects around the world with $1.5 million every year. Very critical projects. So we started locally, though, and it is very important that you have to start locally. For example, tomorrow morning on Fox TV, National Fox, I could do it at 8:30 in the morning. I have to go downtown and do a satellite about the animals coming into New York State, the bears, for example, trying to find homes, coyotes, which are in New York State now. These are all animals that you folks now have. And they were asking me, that's what I was doing the pre-interview just now. Jack, what's causing all these animals to come into our neighborhoods now, where people are scared? If you saw California last week has the bears coming in there, the cougars. And what's happening is these animals have only so much habitat. So what they're doing is they're adapting to our environment. These animals are adapting, the coyotes are adapting so well, because in your backyard you might feed your dog or cat, or you might have a bird feeder, or you might grow a certain type of grass. That's what these animals eat. Even coyotes eat this. So you put that food up. You might have a dog or cat outside. If a coyote's in your yard, you might just take your dog or cat. Now, I'm not saying that every coyote is going to kill your dog or cat. I'm just saying that locally in your area, animals are adapting to our environment because we've taken away their environment. See, and I'm not an anti-developer, okay? I'm just saying that the world is changing now. And we now have, instead of fields and forests and farms, we now have a lot of subdivisions, as you know, a lot of cities. And so as a result of that, now we have to obviously adapt, our wildlife has to adapt to that.
One of the issues that we face in the Great Lakes, obviously, is the invasive species, plants and animals. We have a lot of problems with new species that are coming in. What does that mean? And, I mean, do we adapt to that? Do we try to eliminate invasive species? What are the approaches?
Well, 30 years ago, really no one understood about it. I mean, the invasive species were just like, for example, you're talking about the, what are those clams or mollusks that got in some of the Great Lakes? Zebra, exactly. There's a perfect example of what can happen. Those animals just took over the Great Lakes because they are an animal. But now the government, the wildlife officials are very much in tune, especially where I live in Montana part-time. You know, you're not allowed to even bring in some boats unless they're sprayed off, or the tires on the boats might bring in a certain type of, what you're just saying, a mussel, or a type of worm, who knows what it could be. And so we're much more aware now of bringing these invasive species in. I'm not as, some people in certain parts of the country, especially in Florida, don't like the Australian pines because it's not native. I don't go that far. I don't want to get into that, but sometimes I think invasive species could be carried too far, because really, what's invasive? I mean, what was here 500 years ago? See, I mean, where do you stop the invasiveness? Today, yes, when you have invasive species like certain plants that are going to cause harm or death to people or animals, or the same thing with like a lot of the trout out in Montana, when you have invasive species of trout going to upper lakes where they never were before. See, that's dangerous stuff, because then you are changing things on Earth.
In our own backyard, we have declines of many species, worldwide also.
Right.
What are some of the causes?
Well, the biggest cause, you know, we talk about ozone, we talk about Democrats, Republicans, everybody being the problem. You know what the problem is? It's you and me. It's everybody themselves the problem. And yet, it's so simple. I'm not bragging because I didn't figure it out. This was told to me by a buddy of mine 2 years ago, and I'm sure everyone's figured it out maybe 20 years ago. The baby boomers, which I'm a part of, did more damage to the planet than any previous generation on Earth, period. I remember on our farm in Tennessee, guys down the road just taking their tractors, letting the oil go down the gutters, you know, changing the tractor oil. You've seen that. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but that's the way it was back then. And now all of a sudden we're going, man, we screwed things up here. We got to stop this stuff. And what does that mean? That means it's every individual. Now the biggest problem is one word simply, it's overpopulation. What causes all the ozone? What causes all this global warming? What causes all the problems we have today? Too many people. You know, the Earth is so small. When I was a little boy in Tennessee, the Earth looked so big. I mean, I never got out of Tennessee until I was 18. I couldn't even get into Kentucky, which is 50 miles away. And now here I've been able to travel the whole world, every continent twice, 60-something times to Africa. I mean, it's hard for me to believe what I've done. But as I do this, I look at the world, it's so small, it's frightening. I mean, you look at all the, what is it, billions of people? I guess it's billions by now, yeah. Billions, maybe, who knows?
6 billion maybe?
A lot. And you look at the Earth, and you see what I've seen, and you see that people say, where's the wildest place you go, Jack? And they say, oh, it's Africa. It's not Africa. Because you know, Africa right now is all national parks. It's like the Great Smokies, Yellowstone Glacier. Africa's all made of national parks. The only two wild places left are Antarctica and the Amazon jungle, and maybe the North Pole. Other than that, it's all gone. It's all now parks, because the people have pushed so far, and so we're out of resources anymore. So I think if I'm doing anything for the audience today, is we have to control overpopulation, and each one of us has to be a share. Right now, I'm not bragging about what I used to do, but right now what I do is I try and take shorter showers. I try and walk a lot more. I do walk all the time. I try and walk more. I try and take people with me. I do everything I can do right now in my own little way. You know, I can't, and I've tried to tell people that, but unless everybody just does, can you imagine every newspaper in the country on a Sunday in the United States of America, if every newspaper in this country was recycled, we would save 2,000 acres of forest, 2,000 acres every single Sunday if it was recycled, all your newspapers. I'm talking just Sunday alone. And I can give you, I know you've heard all this stuff before, and I think what's happening now is people are, it's almost like water off a duck's back. People are tired of hearing it. They're tired of hearing about doomsday. If I really wanted to tell you doomsday, I could tell you a lot of things. But what's that going to do for all the young people coming up? You know, you've got to be positive. All I'm trying to tell everybody is, let's start. We got to start now.
We do talk a lot in Buffalo about urban wilderness, and we try to recharacterize the shoreline and the river and try to get people to think about the outdoors more. And we try to talk about it as wilderness. And it's kind of catching on because people don't know what wilderness is. They don't remember it.
Right.
And you're right, it's changed into parks. But now we're trying to plan our cities and our areas around wilderness. I just want to ask you two more questions. First question is, what brought you to this work? Where did your
work?
Yeah, where did you come from in your life to get here? What
Well,
started you?
I was raised on a farm in Knoxville, Tennessee, and my dad, like all kids, I loved animals. So what I did was, I'd bring animals, put like fish in my mother's toilet bowl. I mean, I really did. I did all sorts of crazy things back then in the late 50s, early 60s. And then when I was, 11 years old, I said, I want to work for this veterinarian who used to come to take care of our dogs out on the farm. And so I said, I want to clean cages. So he said, okay, I'll hire you. Now, I think he thought I'd last one day. I lasted 4 years. I cleaned cages for 4 years, $10 a week. I loved it. So when I was 15, I'd carry his bag around the Knoxville Zoo, which is a dump. Now it's not, it's a great zoo. I'd carry his little bag around and said, someday I want to be a zookeeper. When I was 16, I never wavered from that. In college, during the service, I came out of college, cleaned cages, started a little zoo in Florida, and that's how I started. And my dad taught me 3 words. Three words he told me. He said, Jack, hard work and enthusiasm. If you work hard and you love what you do, you can succeed in life. Some people don't have to do that, and that's fine. But with what I was trying to do, it took a lot of hard work, and you can see I love what I do. So I don't care if some young person here tonight or whatever watching this, if they want to sell hamburgers, they want to sell gasoline, if they want to be a doctor, a lawyer, I don't care what they want to be. If you work hard and you love it, you'll succeed.
All right, last question. This is a very special place, I assume, by looking at some of the markers that are here.
Oh God, yeah, I hope my marker's not over.
Not yet. Could you tell us a little bit about what we have here?
Well, we have markers around here. Obviously, we have animals that mean a lot to all of us. You know, you got to be careful in this business because these folks that work at the zoo, it's their family. I mean, this is literally their family. I mean, that sounds maybe corny to some people, but you're dealing with endangered animals. You're dealing with animals that these folks raise from babies. You've got Macombo, where you were with the gorillas today. Who Macombo started, really, he was from Africa, came over here in the 40s, some hunter brought him over here, and he died, I think, my 3rd year here. But he's left behind now the most famous collection of gorillas in the world. Kolo, the first gorilla ever born in the world, was his daughter. 5 generations, the twin gorillas. And so you'll see markers everywhere. We don't show the public. What you're seeing, it's amazing you pointed out, you are the first person in 30 years I've been here that has ever even noticed that. But if you know the zoo and you know where to look, you'll see the markers around the zoo. But the public will never see them because we don't want to really advertise that. You know, one reporter asked me once, he said, what's your death rate at the Columbus Zoo? I go, 100%. He goes, oh my God, what a story. I said, hey, what's the death rate on Earth? 100%, man. Remember, one last thing, 99% of our animals in the zoos around the world come from other zoos. 99%. They don't come from the wild like a lot of animal rights people think they do or tell you they do. They all come from other zoos.
All right, one more question. What message do you want to leave with people tonight? Is there a single message or a variety? What do you want people to go away with?
I think the message tonight is, I say it's a simple message, but it's hard. It's hard if you want to. It's like a person losing weight. You know, it takes a lot of work. It's going to take work. I'm not saying what I'm suggesting tonight everybody will take away. I'm just suggesting that everybody really starts now. If you really care for your kids and your grandkids, you'll start doing something. We do need to find an alternative source of energy. We do need to conserve more. Recycling is still very important. We do need to carpool. We do need to have backyard habitats. Everybody can have a backyard habitat. Somebody said, I live in an apartment. Well, the apartment sits on some kind of ground somewhere, and there's land outside that apartment. And so everybody, there's numerous things we can all do to help keep the planet. The planet was heading for this warming trend anyway. I mean, I've talked to scientists myself, but not this fast. We've increased the speed at what we're heading for this thing. And I'm telling you that it can all be turned around. I just believe in humanity. I really do. I have to believe in the good of people. You know, yes, there's a lot of bad in the world. There's always been bad, but I mean, it seems like today with everything happening, it seems like I don't know what's happening here in the world, but I'm still a very positive person, and people have to have a positive attitude. You know, I do. Even though my daughter had cancer and almost died twice, I have to have a positive attitude that she's going to be okay. I mean, what would it be like for me living every day and not knowing this might be her last day, or even us as human beings? So live every day. You know, like I read, you know, what happened 5 minutes ago is gone. You know, so you know, live for the future. That's what my suggestion is, and the future is going to be a good one if we all do something to help the planet.
Jane Goodall calls it a reason for hope, and I think, Jack, you're a reason for hope, and appreciate your coming to visit with us tonight and now. Thank you.
I love talking to young people, old people too, like me.